Welcome. This is the third independent learning challenge for students at Key Stage 3 doing music. So this is the summer term of Year 7. If you have missed either of the first two independent learning challenges, I would recommend taking a look at those videos. A lot of the principles involved in composing generally and an idea of what it is I'm looking for when I assess your composing are covered in those videos, and I won't cover them again here. I just cover new material. I want to introduce a new idea. It's going to become really important for your future composing, and that is the idea of iteration. Now, iteration just means repeating something at a more refined level over and over and over again until usually you reach a deadline. Now, rather than spending a lot of time on individual sections of music and gradually building up an entire piece, a much better approach normally is to create an overall outline first, and do that really quite quickly. So you have a sketch, if you like, a sound sketch of your composition, which considers, as always, all of the elements and brings in some of those musical techniques that are so powerful that we cover in class. So we create this sketch which is complete from beginning to end, but it's not finished. And there's a difference between being complete and being finished. Complete means it does have a start, middle and end. There's no bits missing, but it could be refined, it could be improved, usually quite significantly. Arguably, a composition is really never finished. You can always fiddle with it. You can always make it a little bit better. Once you've got your first sketch, I would suggest that what you then do is you start again reviewing your composition. You start at the beginning and you just fill in details. Fill in details and make improvements so that you've done another draft of your composition, but this time it's got a little bit more detail, a little bit nuance, a little bit more thought to it. You may have tweaked some of the musical elements in particular. You may have brought in ideas that you hadn't thought of before. Okay, and this process of iterating, of constantly reviewing your composition, coming back and making improvements, is a really positive one, because at any particular time you've got a complete piece of music. That's very motivating to know you've got something you could hand in, rather than I've got a few small sections of music that are really, really detailed, refined and good, but structurally I've no idea how to put this all together. That can be a little bit demotivating. So most successful composers will use this process of saying, right, let's create a sketch, then let's improve it, then let's improve it again, then let's improve it again, until you could argue that's it now, it's perfect. Some people would suggest, have we ever got time to make something perfect? Perhaps not, but it's as good as it's going to get because we've now reached our deadline. We have no time left. And I would like you to think very carefully about that process this time you work on your composition. As always, I'm going to be assessing your composition based on your attention to detail. Now, when I give you a little introduction in a minute to the software that I'd like you to use this time, it is just that, a very, very quick introduction, and I will expect you to start to investigate some of the other special things you can do with that software. I'm not going to go through that, because I think that part of the challenge is your independent inquiry. One thing I would like to mention, though, is something called automation. And in Reaper, automation is achieved through something called envelopes. Now, by just saying that, that will help you search Reaper to find out a little bit more about it. But in essence, what automation does, what envelopes do, is it allows you to record stuff, but then afterwards change each of the musical elements at any given point using the software. So you can have the dynamics very gradually reducing, then suddenly increasing after you've basically recorded your essential idea. So that's going to be really important to you when you record when you create your composition, because as always I'm looking for your attention to detail. Have you thought about all of the musical elements and how to get the most out of your music? Second thing, as always, I will be looking for your use of basic and advanced compositional techniques that we've covered in class or otherwise. But I'm always looking for you to show me that you understand some new compositional techniques that you haven't shown me before. For me, that represents progress. That represents that you've learned something new that you didn't know before. So that's very important. Now, the key difference in this task to previous tasks is that your output will be produced using a sequencer. Now, a sequencer is a bit of computer software, music software, that allows you to record ideas into the computer one layer at a time. It's a very, very powerful technique because it allows you as an individual musician to record an entire piece of music without the help of other musicians, because you can break it down into its individual layers and record those one at a time. Now here we are. I've just opened Reaper. It's an incredibly sophisticated bit of software. It's used by professional studios, and the results that can be created using Reaper are really quite extraordinary. All I want, though, is for you to get some sense of what this type of software does. Now, Reaper is available on the school network. It's available on all of the computers in the music block. It's also available on all of the computers in C4, the computing room, in the computing block, all the computers of which have their own embedded sound cards. And it's also available on a number of the computers in the Ivory Centre. So plenty of opportunity for you to make use of this software during school time or after school if you book the rooms or speak to me about wanting to use the software from school. That said, Reaper is also available for free for both Mac computers and PCs at home. All you have to do, although at school we've paid for licenses for you, all you have to do if you want to use Reaper at home is to press the button once you've loaded Reaper to say I'm still evaluating, so that you don't actually have to pay for it. Now what we do with a software like this, first of all, we have to create a track in order that we can record sounds. Okay, and to create a track we come into this black area here and we simply double click, and what you'll see is when we do that we end up with a control panel for your new track, and we end up with a line that goes across here, which is where your recorded material will be found. Okay, you may record as many tracks as you like. Double click and you get a second track. Double click, a third. There's no limit to the number of tracks that you can record using Reaper. Now, the computers at school all have a MIDI keyboard connected to them, and it's the MIDI keyboard that you're going to use to play in your various recorded ideas. But before you can do that, you need to tell Reaper that you want to use those keyboards. So to do that, we come up here to Options, and we go right to the bottom of this menu and click on Preferences. Now, already selected here is MIDI devices. When you come here, this menu item may not be selected, but you will need to do that, because what we're doing is we're looking for a list of MIDI devices, okay, and we want to enable the keyboard that's plugged into your computer. You'll find it here. Here's mine. Mine is a Yamaha MM6. The ones at school have a different name, and so you will find a different keyboard listed here. Now, as you can see, my keyboard has already been enabled. Sometimes when you start up Reaper, your keyboard will appear because it's plugged into the computer, but it will be automatically disabled. If that's the case, you need to right click the name and click Enable Keyboard. Okay, I don't need to do it because it's already done. Until you do that, however, you won't be able to use your keyboard for recording ideas. Okay, once you've enabled it, click Apply and OK. Next thing that we have to do, and there seems to be an awful lot to do once you're just starting, but the reality is, once you've done this a few times, it's a very, very quick process. Next thing you need to do is you need to click on any given track that you want to be recording using the keyboard. Okay, now by default, tracks are expecting to record sound from something like a microphone. Okay, so I might be able to sing into a microphone connected to the computer, and if I record Enable and press record, it will record my voice. MIDI is a little bit different. MIDI is actually not a set of sounds that are being recorded at all. It's simply a set of codes that tell the computer which notes to play and when. Okay, so if you're going to use a MIDI keyboard, you need to tell Reaper, the track in particular, that it's listening for MIDI. Okay, you will find, once it's enabled, your keyboard listed down here, and you want to say, yep, this is what I'd like to record from. I'd like to record everything that comes from this MIDI keyboard. So click All Channels, and this is now set up to know that it's a special type of track, a MIDI track, that's going to be recording codes coming from your MIDI keyboard. Now, the next thing you need to do, if you want to be able to record MIDI, is you need to listen for MIDI, and that's what this little red button here does. Okay, click that, and now you'll see I'm pressing keys on my MIDI keyboard, and you can see a little red line moving here. That's telling us that the computer is hearing MIDI codes. Of course, we can't hear it because we can't hear computer codes. We can only hear sounds. If we want to hear it, we have to do two more things. We have to turn on this little speaker to say, I would like to hear this, please. But secondly, we need to tell the computer, well, what is it that we want to hear? Because we're not going to be able to hear MIDI codes. We can only hear instruments. So to get an instrument loaded onto this track, we click the FX button here. and a window comes up and we select instruments. Okay, and there's a list of instruments that we can choose from. I'm going to choose a piano and then close that down. Now you will see, although I don't have my speakers turned on because I've got headphones plugged into my computer, you will see that now that I'm pressing keys on my MIDI keyboard, I'm not just getting a thin red line here anymore. I'm getting a significant output of sound that's being directed to the computer speakers, and that sound is a piano because that's the instrument I chose. If I press record now, I can then record in my MIDI notes going down and up, and I now have, I'll save all of that, I now have MIDI codes recorded, and when I press play it will play those MIDI codes through a piano synthesizer. If I decide I don't like the sound of the piano, I like this idea that I've just played, but I've decided I would like it to be a harp, not a piano, all I have to do is go back into Instruments, remove the piano and load up a harp instrument instead. And that's very, very powerful. If I'd recorded something from a microphone and I decided, oh, I'd rather that be on flute, I would have to record the whole thing again. But my basic musical idea is coded here, and I can change the sound afterwards, which is rather nice. Once I've got my first track in here, I can switch this off from listening to record, and I can put a new instrument here. You can hear that you can see that my microphone is picking up my voice because I'm not set to MIDI. Set this to MIDI, and I could, for example, set this using Instruments to be a bass guitar or a bass synthesizer. And whilst, if I press record here, it will play back my piano whilst I play in my second track. And that's what multi-tracking is. It's the ability to layer ideas on top of one another. In a nutshell, that's what a sequencer or a piece of software much like Reaper does, and it's incredibly useful when you're composing things on your own. You don't have to rely on other musicians. You can put each of the ideas in one at a time and layer them up to your heart's content. To summarize, what I'm looking for this time, and this is your summer term ILC, I'm looking for a piece of music, again, that has a clear structure, it's complete. It needn't be any more than a minute in duration, but this time it must be produced using a sequencer. The school sequencer, the industry standard that we use at school is known as Reaper. I will be assessing your overall work based on your attention to detail with regards to the 8 elements of music, how well you've used those, and you showing me that you can deploy some of the compositional techniques that you have not shown me in the past.